Let's welcome Maria Brophy.
For some people, a blank wall can be terrifying. This is a quote by the world famous marine artist Wyland. And Wyland's story is about changing the world slowly, drop by drop, in your cup, over time. So at the age of 22, Wyland was a struggling artist in Laguna Beach. He loved two things. He loved painting and he loved whales. And he was broke. And he was driving down PCH one day and like a bolt of lightning, he saw this huge blank wall. And he just got this idea and this picture in his head of a pod of whales painted on that wall. And he said, I could paint that. Now he had a few challenges. He had 4 to be exact. One challenge was he had never painted anything that big. He had done walls about this size, but he'd never done anything 50 feet high. The next challenge was he had no money, and it cost money for all that paint. He was terrified of heights, and he was 22. He knew nothing about navigating the political system of trying to get approval to paint a wall in the city of Laguna Beach. So, but he thought if he covered that wall, he could maybe save some whales and maybe save his career. So this was an exciting idea. And so the first thing he did was he went to Greenpeace because he knew they cared about whales. And he said, can you help me? And they loved it. They saw his vision. And they said, well, what we need to do is go to the city, give them a presentation, convince them, and they're sure to say yes. Well, they said no. The mayor of Laguna Beach at the time hated the idea of having some 22-year-old artist from middle America. He wasn't even from Laguna Beach. And there were a lot of other problems. There were other groups, like the Laguna Beach Art Group, and all these groups where there were a lot of older people that didn't want to see change. So he was forced at that young age to go up against all these groups and give presentations. And back then there was no PowerPoint, and everything took twice as long. It was frustrating, and it was a battle. And almost 3 years into it, he had one final meeting with the city of Laguna Beach. And there was a reporter that had been following his story because the reporter believed in this and saw his vision as well. So he goes into this last meeting, and this is the final opportunity to change their mind and get them to say yes. And he had he had to have 5 votes. And 3, actually he had to have 4 out of 6 votes, and he had 3 of these city officials promise him that he had their yes vote. So I went in there and he was pretty sure he was going to win the battle, and they all voted no. And he was destroyed and despondent, and he walked out of there just so defeated. And at this point he's 25 years old. He's basically couldn't work for 3 years, hardly work, because this took a lot of time fighting this battle. And he walked out of there with his head down, and the reporter who had been following him said, look, there's another way. I've seen these fights in other cities. Don't give up yet, Wyland. You can do it. And that was just that little extra push that Wyland needed, because he really believed in what he was going to do. So he came up with an alternative idea. He found a different wall in Laguna Beach. He found another big blank wall on the side of the Laguna Beach Hotel. And he thought, well, maybe, some of the groups that were against this didn't want me to paint that particular wall. Maybe if I change the wall, I'll get approval. And so he started his battle all over again, and went into the city, and they're just like, oh God, will this guy ever go away? He was geared up for another 2-year battle, and I guess he wore them down because his first presentation, they said, go ahead, paint the wall. So now he needed a lot of money and a lot of paint and scaffolding, and luckily he got Sinclair Paint to donate half the paint. And the other half he had to pay for out of his own pocket. And after doing that, he had $6 left. And he enlisted the help of one of his buddies who had nothing better to do. He rented half the scaffolding that he needed because he didn't have enough money for all the scaffolding. So what he did was he just doubled it up. It wasn't very safe, but financially it was what he could do. So his first day, he and his buddy are painting just the base colors. This color is called Laguna Blue. And they get as much of that Laguna Blue on that wall as they can. It took them about 12 hours. And then at the end of a long, hard day, they felt good, and they loaded Wyland's old pickup truck up with the paint. They're driving down Laguna Beach, PCH, and somebody cuts Wyland off, and the back of his truck opens up and all this paint falls out. And Laguna Blue is splattered everywhere. Not just on the roads, but on people's cars. And he's going, oh my God, you know, I just got everybody in the city to approve this after this long fight. Now look what I've done, I've screwed up. And he's out there grabbing the paint cans and trying to, as quickly as he can before anybody sees that it's him. And one firefighter who knew the story and knew Wyland, he's going, hey Wyland, you're supposed to be painting the wall, not the ground. And nobody ever really called him on it. They let it slide, I think, because they felt sorry for him. So 30 days to paint this wall. He got a ton of press. Laguna Beach Hotel got a ton of press. So much so that they got to jack up their rates. Sadly enough, they never even bought Wyland lunch. He did it all out of his own pocket. And so one day, while he's painting the wall, he gets interviewed by a newspaper. And they say, so Wyland, what are your plans after this wall? What are you going to do? And again, he didn't know what the answer to that was, but it just popped out of his mouth. He said, I'm going to paint 100 of these walls in the next 30 years. And I said, wow. But that became his goal. And 30 days later, the wall was painted, and everybody in the city was grateful for it, even the people who originally were against it. And 27 years later, at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, Wyland painted his 100th wall.
Wow.
Now, what he didn't know when he was 25 years old and painted that first wall, or maybe he did know it deep inside, that by painting that first wall, it would lead into 99 more. And by doing that, he would save a hell of a lot of whales, because nobody cared about whales until they could actually see them life-size, really. And then he also didn't realize that it would create this huge path of success for himself, because he is incredibly, financially and in every other way, very successful. So the two things that I want you to take away from this story is, one, follow your instincts. When you get that bolt of lightning, it says, wow, it'd be great to paint this huge wall, even though it's such a big idea. Go with your instincts. And the other thing is, over time, those little drops in your cup, over the years, they fill up and they overflow. And you can look back over the last 27 years of your life and go, wow, look what I did. So don't underestimate what passion and belief in your own vision can get you.